Your next guest says that real jobs are created by private industry, not the government, and that our country's in need of a new small business lending fund, or we risk high unemployment for years. Joining us now from Tulsa, Oklahoma is Bill Bartmann. He is CEO of Bartmann Enterprises and author of the book, Bailout Riches. Bill, welcome back. What do you want to do?
Well, good morning, Brian, and good to see you again. What I would hope that the Congress and the President would do would be to take all the money that they are now talking about putting into a jobs bill, and rather than extend unemployment benefit, which really isn't helping anybody, the people who are unemployed really don't want extended benefits. They want a job. So take that money and allocate it to the local community banks. Right now, there are over 5,000 community banks that, of the 8,100 banks in the United States, that if indeed they had more capital, and I know we hear people from time to time saying banks have plenty of money. They don't have plenty of money. If the banks had that money and literally would be forced to lend it inside their own respective communities, we'd be able to solve not only the unemployment problem in a heartbeat, would also be able to conquer this recession. Right now, the Obama administration has this game changer in front of them where they could do to the economy what the surge did to the war in Iraq.
But isn't the problem right now that a lot of these big banks got bailouts, they're hoarding capital, and they're not lending? If we give the smaller banks more money, who's to say they're going to lend it?
Well, it's called We Should Learn from the Mistakes We've Made. And yes, TARP 1 was absolutely a mistake in its execution. It was a great idea and a great plan, and it truly did, in fact, do some good. I think it took the company or the country from the precipice and perhaps rescued what would have been maybe even worse. But it did make mistakes. And one of the mistakes it made is it gave banks the money without any restriction. Oh, sure, they had to restrict their CEO pay, but it didn't tell the banks they had to lend. So the banks didn't lend. Well, this time around, because we've learned that, with the small community banks, the government give them the money under the agreement that they have to put it out on the street immediately.
But isn't that still just government involvement using taxpayer money just in a different way?
It is government taxpayer money, but it is money that the taxpayer won't have to pay. Done well and done right, it won't be any different than cash for clunkers, where the government funds the program, but at the end of the day, the good that has been done outweighs the cost. In this case, the cost to the taxpayer could in fact be marginal. Assuming these banks, the 8,100 banks in America, actually start making loans again, actually start lending money to customers, lend money to businesses who buy inventory, increase their capacity, and hire workers, wouldn't that be something worth paying for? We've already spent over $2 trillion in a bailout that arguably hasn't done a thing.
But do you believe that small businesses will start hiring even if credit is available? Companies don't hire unless the women and men that they hire are able to effectively pay for themselves, right? If the economy is bad and they don't think that worker is going to generate, salary plus something, call it profit, why would they lend? Why would they borrow any money at all?
Absolutely. No prudent business person is just going to hire somebody to sit there and not engage in meaningful employment. Of course, you're absolutely correct. But there are companies all over the United States. And you look in the yellow pages of any city in America and look at those businesses and say, what if they had the capacity to borrow money to expand their operation? What if they had the capacity to increase their inventory? What if they had the capacity to do what it is they think would be a prudent thing for them to do as an independent, privately held business? And right now, we all know that business lending in the United States has contracted and is tighter now than it has been in the last 30 years. This infusion would relax that credit contraction and allow business people who needed money and wanted to hire people to be able to go to their local bank and borrow money.
What's the downside of this? What if the banks, what if the companies fail at a higher rate than normal? I mean, then you're going to have to lend at these ridiculously high rates to make up the gap for the people that don't make it, that don't pay the money back.
Yeah, no plan is perfect, and with 8,100 banks, we can safely assume some of the loans they make to some of the businesses in their respective communities will in fact fail anyhow. But let's put it in perspective. We had a thing 30 years ago called the Community Reinvestment Act, and the nuts and bolts of it was let's lend money to private citizens who likely can't afford to pay it back. Now, I know some people take umbrage with my definition, but that is the short form. Well, in this case, why don't we take money and lend it to businesses, even though some of them may fail, because the ones that succeed will offset the failures. And Brian, as a footnote, right now there are 8,100 banks in America with 552 of them on the FDIC troubled list. how many other banks are going to fail because they cannot make a profit presently? Well, this infusion would solve both problems.
Bill Bartmann, CEO of Bartmann Enterprises. Bill, it's a pleasure to have you on the show again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Take care. Author of Bailout Riches as well. All right.